Hello, everyone. My name is Vala Afshar, Chief Digital Evangelist for Salesforce and your co-host on DisrupTV. Please follow us on Twitter at DisrupTV Show, and also send us your questions using hashtag DisrupTV so that Ray, myself, and our distinguished guests can answer your questions. Also, watch our videos of our show. We've had tens of thousands of views of our previous shows and guests, so we welcome your thoughts and feedback. It's my pleasure to join, to introduce Ray Wang, CEO, founder of Constellation Research, best-selling author, digital business disruption, and one of the most social futurists on Twitter at @RWang0. Welcome, Ray.
Hey, thanks a lot. I'm here joined with my co-host, Vala Afshar, Chief Digital Evangelist at Salesforce, and also one of the most influential CIO, CMO writers for Huffington Post, and of course, in the world. So here we go. Let's see, who do we have today? Are you ready for some mutuality?
Yeah, totally am. Ray, it's an honor to have Kare Anderson on our show. Kare is an Emmy-winning former NBC and Wall Street Journal reporter, now focusing and discussing connected behavior, speaker and columnist for Forbes and Huffington Post. Kare's TED Talks on the web of humanity, Be an Opportunity Maker, has attracted over 1.97 million. I was going to say 2 million, but I want to be specific. 1.97 million views. Her clients are diverse, from Salesforce to Novartis to Skull Foundation. She's a founding board member of Annie's Homegrown, co-founder of 9 political PACs, and author of Mutuality Matters, Moving from Me to We, Getting What You Want, and Resolving Conflict Sooner. Anderson serves on the advisory board of Gloop, Watermark, and TEDx Marine. Discover more about Kare's work on her blog, Moving from Me to We. You can follow Kare on Twitter at Kare Anderson. Welcome, Kare, to our show.
Oh, I'm honored to be here with you two shy people.
I always have such a tough time shortening bios of our extraordinary guests, and you've done a lot.
No, I agree. And, one of the things that, first time I saw your TED Talk, I just sat there and I said, oh my God, I am totally unconnected. I'm totally missing this. And I think what you uncovered here was something really important, which is really about what brings us all together. And so, I mean, you look at this connective behavior, you're looking at the effects it has on us and individuals and companies in this area. I mean, what's happening in the big picture? I mean, we seem more connected, yet feel disconnected. What's underlying behind that?
I think in many countries, more people are living and working alone. But what before was sort of a good add-on to be connected with people unlike you is now a must-have. I think Steve Case is saying that in the third wave. A variety of people are, because we can't know everything. And we can't be sort of idle in our relationships to others, but proactively looking for people who have complementary talents. I have a brain that's called a double helix. I have gaps in it. So from early in my life, I figured out I need help. It wasn't a choice. But it's been the biggest source of adventure. So seeking out people, for example, over a decade ago who are digital analytics, I could barely understand them and vice versa. But when we worked together, I could help them craft their message, and they could give me ideas about how to form partnerships to boost my causes, which at that time were prison reform and still are. So I really say some of the people that bug you most are often the best potential allies. This is a raucous time in our country, so I think it takes some patience to do that.
Ray mentioned the word mutuality when he started our interview today. You talk about the importance of mutual benefit in terms of creating meaningful connections. What type of characteristics or practices you need to consider in order to make sure that there is a level of mutuality when you try to connect?
I say proactively explore in any situation a potential sweet spot of shared interest with someone. And because we're in a digital world, you can find out a lot about them ahead of time. And if you don't, you're not showing a sign of respect. And in fact, I even advocate that organizations say to their individuals, proactively, when you meet another employee or a customer or whatever, tell them that's high on our agenda to see where our interests intersect. And I now have 2 companies in England that are doing that now. So if you say, let's see where we have the strongest common interests, be upfront about it, and then confirm. There's a book called Mindwise by Nicholas Epley. We often make assumptions we're wrong and say, well, then it seems like you're saying your strongest interest is this, and what you most like doing is this. Because one of the biggest lacks, I think, in some companies is not enabling people to use their best talents together on things they think are meaningful. So mutuality doesn't mean you have to agree on everything. That would be a bore. But if tight-knit teams have common values across the board, they get more extreme. So small teams, they get to work together and intersect with each other. Everything from Saddleback Church to Gore-Tex, they have strength in their numbers. I'm a fan of Team of Teams by McChrystal, the general.
Right.
Yeah, no, he's definitely talking about how that comes to play. And when you start talking about the teams and really becoming opportunity makers that you've talked about, how do you stay relevant though? I mean, in terms of, you could be an opportunity maker and stay relevant and sought after, or are there different other ways to stay relevant as you team up with people who aren't necessarily the same as yourselves?
Very well put. Well, it goes back to a friend we were talking about earlier, John Hagel. It's a pull world, not a push world. Yet still, some people are pushing at you. And I think the way to stay relevant is peeling away the onion of what you think your talent is. Many of us believe we have many talents, and that may be true. But Why Quitters Win, the book that says quit certain things or do less of them and look at what is your core strength. I see patterns when people say, here's the way our system is organized. I can see where they could leverage a new niche market or shift things. I have no sense of direction. I have trouble filling out forms. But I also know how to make things quotable sometimes to get more specific. So what I'm advocating is when you get super specific about your top talent, you pull in, you notice resources and people that have talents different than yours. And specificity leads to greater self-clarity, reduced misunderstanding with others, greater credibility and memorability. I'm trying to practice what I preach. It's not easy. It is.
I love the humility, Kare. You've been on the show for 2 minutes and you've, I think, listed a half a dozen things you can't do well. So that's awesome.
Well, they say you should stay humble. Well, some of us have no choice. Yeah. As our chief of police said here in Sausalito when she stopped me for going too slow because I was lost.
I'm with you. I'm starting to lose sense of direction more and more with time. But you also are world renowned in terms of helping executives and companies be more quotable, and certainly that helps with seeking random collisions and having meaningful connections. How do you become more quotable? Are there certain insights you can share with our audience? I think it's super important for any executive in business to learn about quotability.
I think of the specific detail that proves a general conclusion. As we learn more about stuff, calling it the curse of knowledge, we tend to give a lot of background and setup. We don't answer questions directly. But if you keep thinking, if I really am trying to advocate this, what's an example of a what if we did it? Or what's even more credible if we don't do it? Because people try to avoid something more than go towards it, unfortunately, our fight or flight syndrome. So if I remember a guy that said, when you put on this patch on your body, when it's approved by April, you'll feel the effects throughout your body faster than Porsche can go from 0 to 90. Now that was a visual thing they watched him to characterize. So I call it compared to what? Compare your main point to something else that's familiar to them. Kit Kat and coffee break. It's sort of a boring thing, but it was a brand slogan. So whenever you're having coffee, you might think of them. So the specific detail proves the general conclusion, not the reverse. So be on the lookout for something that proves your point or reinforces the power of it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's actually pretty powerful, right? Because the coffee break traditionally was a biscuit, right? And it's actually not only, it's a switch, right? You do the switch, right? So you
That's
actually
a
did a
good way to put it.
replacement, which was very cool. So,
Yeah.
so back to this quotability thing. That's actually that you're talking about. You know, one of the things that people have a tough time is really taking complex ideas and getting them simplified and still thinking that they've carried the message. And one of the things I'm sure you've seen over time, it seems like the less we talk about, the more interesting it is. And I'm trying to figure out, the less details seem to bring, the person with the most detail seems to be getting paid the least. The person with the least detail seems to be getting paid the most. And there's a weird inversion going on right now of what's happening. Do you see that as well?
I do. I mean, you just helped me clarify it more. I've been seeing that. Because choosing the distinctive detail, I call it steps across a pond, say, this is the core insight, and this is the way we can walk through this technology so you understand it. So tell me if I'm not making sense at some point because I've been too close to it. Sort of acknowledging that. Say, imagine something that could do this, but imagine if you could do it in half the time or for less money or less chance of it being picked up by someone else and used wrongly. So give them the reason to hear more by setting up that key detail. And thanks, Ray, for that. That helped.
Well, you know what's interesting about that is because there's an essence behind that, right? Because you work with different teams, and to keep teams tight knit, there's always a communication gap. An artist talks and thinks and speaks different than an architect or an engineer, right? A scientist and an accountant, you know, do things differently than someone who's a broadcast journalist, right? And so, is this one way to keep things more tight or keep teams more, you know, tight knit and relevant in terms of like creating like the right team structure?
Yes, never have more than 7. Have rules of engagement. Like we will answer a question directly. We'll keep a thread to the conversation. But one of the things about a tight-knit team too is there's a book called, my mind just went blank, but have someone who's new to your area and say, I'm going to tell you what I'm trying to get across. You don't know much about that area. Tell me if I can make it make sense to you. And when teams do that, it's helpful. And if you have teams from different departments, by doing that, you get closer together. And you say something like, what's our top goal out of this meeting? And I call it lean loose as well, to say, let's each go around and talk one top need we have right now. And then see as we do that, if anybody has something to help them on that. So I think regular meetings of a group where they are succinct and pithy and have a thread to the conversation, it's a discipline. And when they do it, they become increasingly proud. I know that from my coaching. And they get restless. It's sort of like a dry alcoholic. You get restless when other people aren't specific, don't answer the point, and so on, because you've learned to do it together. It's pretty powerful.
Sure, sure.
So you're promoting inclusion. You're basically promoting inclusion by giving people an equal opportunity to participate.
Yes, yes. And people are introverted or slow thinkers. I'm a fast thinker. My partner is a slow thinker. It just means he asks me a question, I come up with 5 ideas, and within 2 days, but not right away, he can point out what's wrong with them and often come up with a better idea. So being around people of different temperaments and talents, that's why I don't think you should decide everything in a meeting. You should say, let's think about it a bit more. So the quote slow thinkers, as Daniel Kahneman called them, have a chance to give input in their own way, and they don't get overridden and walked over by the excitable people like me with these bursts of ideas.
Yeah, I heard Jeff Bezos at the most recent Recode conference talk about not liking to go to meetings where there's already a conclusion.
Yes.
He wants to go to meetings and discover opportunities and possibilities, not be presented with solutions and final outcomes.
Yes.
I think that's terrific. That's terrific advice. As an Emmy Award-winning former Wall Street Journal, NBC journalist, can you give us advice, especially to startup founders and Fortune 500 CXOs that are DisrupTV audience members? How do you gain trust with media in your industry? What did you look for when you seek influencers and executives in terms of making sure that they would be providing information that was relevant and useful to your readers?
Well, basically, I found out what their track record was. I asked other people about them, and then I just noticed how they spoke up in other situations. I would say for people who want to become a subject matter expert to key media, look at the columnists, the reporters, the bloggers who are covering areas in a smart way, and comment online about why you like certain things, honest. And then send them an email and say, I liked it when you covered this, this, and this. It appears you may cover my area. If you're covering any one of these 3, 5, or 7 areas, and say it briefly, I'd be glad to give you a perspective. And if I don't think I'm the right one, someone else. I wouldn't throw that letter away. It only happened to me 4 times. I get 23 or 25 emails a day from professional PR people. One of them thinks I'm a man. You know, they haven't checked on me very much. I know Kare is elusive. But I say, be of value. Demonstrate your value and your understanding of the kind of things that the journalist covers. Cite them. Support the stuff you like that they do.
You don't like canned PR pitches? No, I was kidding. We get pitched every day.
First address their interest, then how it relates to you, not the reverse. Don't send me a letter saying, we, me, this is what we're doing. By the way, do you want to talk to them? That's what most of them are. Sorry, it's a rant, but...
No, it's true. I know I'm in trouble when it says, Dear R. Ray. It's some like form letter.
That's so well put. Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
So, well, hey, cool. I got a question for you too. That's related to kind of all the stuff after TED, right? I mean, the big TED Talk came. You did the TEDx Berkeley. You know, you're on the TEDx Marin board, if I remember, if that's correct.
Yes. Yes.
And so the question is, what's changed since the time you gave that awesome talk at TED? Like, has the market changed? Have people looked at things differently? And it's also changing at TED as well in terms of the types of talks that are resonating with people.
I think TED's evolving too. It's actually been criticized in some ways. I think there's all kinds of TED Talks and their brand is so big, it does change the people who've been giving them. As to the world changing, I see a speed up. What I talked about being an opportunity maker, I said the law of unintended consequences is increasingly becoming the norm, not the exception. Just last week, our military was chastised, or our Defense Department, because now ISIS has weaponized drones and they can have remotely charged drones into bombs. So the need now for an opportunity maker is more important than a traditional leader. We really need people who can assemble the right team fast to solve a problem or to seize an opportunity. Sometimes they maybe have a lot of traditional power by title, but not always. And I think I see the speeding up of that transition. And who can turn something into a story so you can't ignore it, for bad and for good. But as Dan Ariely said over 9 years ago, as we become more digital, lie, cheating, and stealing is a wider opportunity. So it's our noble responsibility to be holding up technology for the beneficial side and to notice when it can all go down the tubes and be used in a horrible way. I think you two are good examples of how you cite the things you cite so people see opportunities from their better side.
So we have a shot at fighting this dystopian era that people seem to keep drawing into, thanks to the movies and everything about where technology is headed.
Absolutely.
Yes, an upside and a downside. We'll be hit by both. But as long as there's people like my second cause, helping those people in refugee camps, actually helping them in demonstrable ways that resources get to them and they get skills so they are sought after and they get to get out. I'll get off my soapbox, but I think technology is what's needed, and people, unlikely allies, to join forces, pull in governments and business. That may not be where the lead starts. The individuals may do it.
Sure.
Thank you.
My final question is,
yes.
When I think of Ray, he's like an unforgettable face for Constellation Research. Not because he's the CEO and founder, but I find that his accessibility and, I guess, generosity makes him an unforgettable face for his company. What are some of the other traits that individuals can practice and develop so that they can become an unforgettable face in a good way for their company?
Well, he just demonstrated his generosity to me before we're on the air, and I want to thank you. And it wasn't like, well, you do this for me if I do this for you. So I believe the healthiest relationships are when you're being a helpful helper. you're generous in ways you are aware would be helpful to them. And it's not a quid pro quo, but it's an ebb and flow over time. One of the biggest things down and up since TED Talks, the number of people reach out and say, oh, you're so good at, can you do this for me? And to a point, I try. But then there's others who are clearly trying to say, because of your this, you might want to know this person because, and here's an opportunity.
Yep.
So those people have self-respect and self-awareness. So I think those go together. Generous people like Ray are also ones that are saying, what specifically would be helpful in this situation with these people? I can tell it from the conference. I have looked at the conference. Constellation.
Well, we'll try to get you out there next year, if that makes sense.
I would love it.
So, but yeah. Well, hey, this has been wonderful. Kare, thanks for being generous with your time, your thoughts, your wisdom. I think a lot of people are going to be excited to be able to see this, both the ones that are here live. You can follow Kare Anderson at KareAnderson. And Kare, where are you going to be speaking next so people know where you're going to be at? So,
I'm speaking in Philadelphia to a group of healthcare systems. I feel very blessed to be doing that, about how to be more compassionate diagnostics. Tamara McCleary and I are the opening keynotes to the heart surgeons called CHEST. That'll be interesting.
That is awesome. Thank you so much. So please come back.
Thank you, Kare. All right. That was just awesome, Ray. I certainly need to practice being more quotable. So I'm gonna watch Kare's TED Talks again and read her books. But we're honored now to have another guest where I had difficulty. Yeah, Ray, hold up the book, please. I had difficulty shortening his bio, but I'd like to welcome Otto Berkes, EVP CTO at CA Technologies. As an Executive Vice President, CTO at CA Technologies, Otto is responsible for technical leadership and innovation, further developing the company's technical community, aligning the software strategy, architecture, and partner relationships to deliver customer value. His entire career has been based on delivering value. Otto has extensive experience leading development and cutting-edge products and technologies. He was an early champion of mobile computing, led to development of touch-based technologies, user interfaces, hardware architecture, physical designs, and forerunner for today's tablets. Before CA, Otto serves as Chief Technology Officer at HBO, where he directed efforts and delivered innovative digital technologies and products such as HBO Go. During his tenure, HBO Go became one of the most popular streaming services in the US. Before that, he spent 18 years at Microsoft. And one of the founders, he was the founder of Xbox, which was a skunk project, but I won't mention that because we're live. But as Xbox's architect, he led the entire technical direction. So please follow Otto on Twitter at Otto Berkes, OttoBerkes. Welcome, Otto, to DisrupTV.
Fantastic to be here. Absolutely fantastic. Thank you.
We only invite slackers. So Otto, you've done the trifecta. You went from consumer tech to entertainment and now enterprise software, right? So in this digital transformation ahead, I mean, you've been in the beginning of digital transformation for all those industries. Is there a difference in how you work with B2B and B2C companies? And then we'll talk a little bit about this thing. So.
Honestly, it's a great question, and there's more similarity than difference. When you look under the hood of, I'll just go back to Xbox. When you look under the hood of Xbox Live and what it takes to run that service, and all the issues with scalability and security, honestly, it's not that much different than running the infrastructure and services for a large-scale online bank. You've got very much the same issues. So in a real sense, what you interact with as a consumer, what you see as a consumer, is just kind of a veneer over a set of technical challenges that are very much in common, across different segments of the industry.
Sure, sure. Otto, in your book, Digitally Remastered, which Ray's going to hold up, you mentioned application of digital technologies have shifted from supporting businesses to driving businesses. You also said that every business is a software or services business. Can you talk a little bit about what you mean? When you
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, by the way, I should mention that Ray contributed to the book, so thank you for that, Ray. And
no problem.
Really, the motivation for the book, you know, came out of the fact that there's really a sea change happening with how technology is applied to business and how business can take advantage of technology. You know, technology has always been a part of business, and specifically, you know, computers have been you know, a part of business since they were invented, because they brought significant efficiency to how businesses could be operated and run. So there's really nothing new in the sense that you know, digital technology has been an intrinsic part of businesses for decades. But it's really how technology is being applied and the opportunities that it creates that fundamentally changes its application and its role in business. So if you look at kind of history, you know, technology and software has really been applied to create efficiencies in business, and really focused on kind of the internal functionings of the business itself. With the advent of, you know, the mobile device explosion and pervasive internet access, all of a sudden you had the ability to use software to connect directly to customers of the business, to create digital pathways that were bidirectional, that were real time, that really deconstructed this you know, barrier that had been existed you know, between businesses and the outside world. All of a sudden, you had this permeable interface through software that was possible to connect the business directly to its customers.
You know, that makes a lot of sense. And when we think about what's happening, you know, just overall in the shift to, you know, digital, I mean, you talk about this modern service factory, right? And what's required to build this. And then digitally remastered, I mean, you know, why is it important for organizations today to operate like one? I mean, you make a big point to talk about this and how people have to shift in terms of their thinking. What's driving that?
It's really the need for velocity and responsiveness. You know, customer expectations have changed radically over the past 5 to 10 years. They expect you as a business to, number one, understand their needs, and number two, to respond to those needs that are changing dynamically, you know, as quickly as possible. And that's really the change. You know, the notion that you can you know, respond on a you know, 12-month release cycle to what's happening, you know, with your customers, or to respond to you know, competitive pressures or new opportunities, it's a thing of the past. You know, you have to be constantly iterating and providing new experiences and new value to your customers through digital channels. Is simply not optional anymore.
Ray can remind me, I'm not sure who said this, but the future is already here, but it's unevenly distributed. When you think about digital transformation, is this for modern economies, developed countries, or is this a global phenomenon?
It is absolutely a global phenomenon. You know, there are different levels of maturity across the globe, but you know, one of the things that, you know, this device connected, internet connected revolution has brought is a real flattening, you know, across the globe. You know, the notion that you know, you think only in the context of you know, one specific region as a business, you know, that also simply makes no sense in this new you know, massively connected world.
You know, so when we think about this shift, right? I mean, are people moving fast enough And back to the Gibson quote that Val was talking about, and he's actually the guy who invented the term cyberspace, if I remember correctly. William Gibson actually, I think he had this notion that we're moving, but we're not moving fast enough, but we're never moving fast enough. How does that fit into the way you're looking at digital transformation for you, your clients, and what's been happening in the broader scope?
And I like the word you use, velocity, because it's not just speed, but direction.
That's right. That's right. Well, I have my undergrad was in physics, so I'm very sensitive to that
Black
the terminology.
Moving quickly.
You bring up a great point, and velocity is the greatest single challenge to enterprises trying to maneuver into this new world and into a new way of operating. One of the things that's really important to keep in mind is that simply optimizing the role of technology is insufficient. Just adding more to what has existed for the past few decades is not going to be a successful path. Companies really need to deconstruct what they have in their technology portfolio, in how they approach technology, the cultural aspect of how it's integrated into the company, and really rebuild in a real sense their technology capability, and doing it in a way that it's fully integrated into into the rest of the business. The idea that you can have this technology department that's this silo off to the side that's just taking requests from the rest of the business and executing, it's a broken model. It simply no longer works with a very customer-centric, customer-driven approach to harnessing technology as a core driver of the business that spans across everything that that the business touches.
Sure. So it's not a destination. This is a journey.
It's absolutely a journey, and one of the concepts that's in the book is the notion of continuous iteration. You're never done, and really what you're trying to do within the context of technology is to enable a very rapid iterative feedback loop to the outside world and with your customers.
I've often thought that when you adopt there's a word for it. Is it Kaizen approach of small iterative continuous improvement? You can look back a year or two and you've transformed significantly, but you can't necessarily think about a particular moment or a single initiative that led to the transformation. It was just continuous improvement and digitization over time. How do you get started? I mean, what's your advice to companies and organizations that come to you and they're in desperate need of transformation? What advice do you give them?
So I think absolutely critical to your point to generate a sequence of small batch actionable achievable goals. You have to balance the long view, but with those near-term successes. A big danger here is trying to boil the ocean, which absolutely won't work. You do have to take some bold steps and make some bold decisions. For example, hey, we're going to move from this waterfall process to agile methodologies. But again, that can be decomposed into bite-sized pieces as well. You don't necessarily have to do that to your entire organization. You can take a specific area that's somewhat self-contained, roll out the transformation and have it build on its success and in a good way infect the rest of the organization. It's finding those opportunities to make a real dent and make a real difference in a fairly aggressive time frame.
You know, Otto, that actually makes a lot of sense. In the last 4 chapters of your book, you talk about APIs being part of the digital nervous system. You talk about the need for security. You talk about where analytics and insights come to play. And you also talk about delivering on customer value. Those are 4 big things an organization has to grapple with. Who typically leads each one of those? Is it like an individual on their own? Or do you bring together different teams, kind of what Kare was talking about earlier with this mutuality portion?
Yeah, it depends for each one of those topics or areas. It depends on the context of the business. Something like ensuring customer value. Frankly, that's everyone's job. I think it's important to take a really integrated approach, so that for example, APIs, like there's going to be some domain-specific expertise that's brought to bear, and you're not going to necessarily have everyone lending their opinion or talent on building out an API strategy. However, that strategy should incorporate the entire context of the company. None of these things can be done in pure isolation. You can certainly try to do them in pure isolation and have some success, but to achieve the full impact, you really need to approach digital transformation as a company-wide objective, not something that you hope the techie folks take care of.
So I'm trying to pretend I'm the CTO of an incredibly innovative company, CA Technologies, and right away I'm like, man, you gotta have big shoulders. I mean, what keeps you up at night? Maybe that's the wrong way of asking it, because you sound like you're having a blast at work. So I'm sure you sleep really well. But what are some of the challenges your customers are facing? And what an awesome responsibility to be the CTO responsible for the velocity of innovation at your company. Advice to other CTOs, and what should they be thinking about? And when they think about value creation and innovation and all of these emerging technologies that are hitting us, frankly, like an avalanche.
Yeah, and the thing that keeps me up at night, if you will, is really making sure that I'm helping create the right balance between looking ahead and anticipating technology inflection points and changes that are coming down the pipe. But also staying very grounded in these of our customers and their current needs. So making sure that I'm creating the right cadence, the right bridge from the current set of challenges and what our customers need today, and their needs over the next 3 to 5 years, and making sure that we hit the right the right cadence and the right speed to intersect our customer needs at that sweet spot where where we can come in and provide a solution.
Great answer. Hey, we actually got a question on Twitter from Zachary Jeans, and he's asking, how do you deal with the vocal minority in your partner user base when it comes to product service development? Kind of question on prioritization, because it's always a tough call when you have all these folks, and all these different stakeholders working on your product roadmap.
Yeah, and the vocal minority, can be incredibly helpful, because you might think they're a minority, but when you actually look at some problem or issue, guess what? It's actually a bigger issue than you had thought. So my view is that you should always have the broadest, the biggest funnel to make sure that you're hearing all voices and in your community.
Wow. Hey, Otto, thank you for being on the show. You can follow Otto, VP and CTO at CA Technologies, Twitter on Otto Berkes, OTTOBERKES, and more importantly, get digitally remastered. It's actually a great guide on how to get started on the digital transformation ahead. So thanks a lot, Otto, and welcome to the alumni.
My pleasure. Great to be here. Thank you.
Great speaking with you. So Ray, are you in every book that's tech related?
No.
How many times do people pull you into? That's awesome.
When it's time and people ask, I help out. And I'll write forwards, or and endorse a book if it looks good. But
that's fantastic.
When I have free time,
Yeah, during the plane rides. Well, I'm sure you're going to be in Larry's future book as well. So it's breaking news. Larry's publishing a book. No, one of our favorite guests, Larry Dignan, editor-in-chief of ZDNet and Smart Planet as well, and editorial director of ZDNet's sister site, Tech Republic. Larry has covered technology and financial services industry for a long time, since 1995. He started very early. And you can follow Larry on Twitter. I don't want to reveal our guest age on DisrupTV.
I used to have to edit stories in Unix, which is actually true. So
You said it. I didn't.
I kind of dug it, actually. I could actually code at some point.
You can follow Larry on Twitter at LDIGNAN, Dignan, and definitely follow Larry because it's absolutely the latest new technology news in several industries. Welcome to DisrupTV, Larry. Welcome again.
Hey.
Welcome, Larry. We got hot stuff. I don't care what order you want to do this. You tell us what's hot on your end, but AWS and VMware, cloud frenemies or buddies, AI ethics and Obama's report, along with partnership on AI and 60 Minutes and Watson, Facebook at work, and then hot phones. I'll just leave it at that.
That's the 7? Is that the Note 7?
No, I haven't. They're trying to recall it from me. It's sitting in my house. They keep saying, "Can we come by and pick up your Note 7?"
Samsung will not take it back.
No, they're taking it back. They're taking it back.
I have a review unit. I'm like, send me the damn label. And they're like, well, let's see, blah, blah, blah. And the biggest issue is I don't think they want to throw it in a UPS truck.
Actually, you're right about that. They've been trying to come by to my house to physically pick it up on their own.
Right. So they want me to cart it to the New York office and have a message to pick it up.
Yeah.
So I guess if it explodes on a bike messenger, no big deal, but they certainly don't want it in a UPS truck. So it's kind of wacky, though, because I'm like, I want to send this stuff back.
Oh, I think they don't want it on the plane, right? Because UPS truck picks it up, puts it on the plane, and then sends it over. And if just something happens, they're better off in the the lesser of two evils. I'm not going to go there.
Right. Although the fireproof boxes from Samsung, great.
That's right. Yeah.
I think that's their best innovation of the last month or so. So that's good.
Well, can the brand recover? I mean, you talked about this, I mean, it was a great launch. The product had great opportunities. We covered it. We looked at it as an enterprise. I mean, it was an enterprise grade product, right? And lots of folks don't want to give it up.
Dude, I love that thing. I thought that phone was great. And by the way, the review unit, I did try to blow it up so many times. I just drained the battery, plug it in. I'm like, catch on fire, catch on fire. It never caught on fire.
I know. I was waiting to film it. And I couldn't blow it either. Not that
that's annoying.
But then I'm sick like that.
So I think the brand can recover. And actually what I'm really watching is I'm watching kind of what the other people do. Because if you look at the Android ecosystem, there's basically Samsung and Samsung. That's the premium device. And when Google came out with the Pixel, my biggest gripe was the price. And they priced as a premium device, which I guess is good. But now it's sort of, will there even be a premium player? And, Google could, with the Pixel, could actually take a lot of that demand that the Galaxy Note 7 was going to take. So you could wind up with Google taking more of the Android profit pie, as if there was one. But I mean, the hardware, I don't know why anybody makes an Android smartphone because there's no money in it. It's all the smartphone profits go to Apple and Samsung. Everybody else, why bother? At least if you like money. But so yeah, I think the brand can recover, and you know, they didn't handle the recall all that well, and it kind of sucks that the replacement devices blew up. But when you combine it, I mean, when you compare it to like, well, what's the other recall? Batteries and pacemakers. Not jump starting, right? They're draining too fast. There was Tylenol, the Tylenol scare. There's the whole Takata airbag thing.
Yep.
Right? You go list. I mean, you can go down the list. The recalls are pretty damn scary, and I don't know if a few exploding batteries here and there are that big of a deal. I think it's a big deal because we're all addicted to smartphones, right? You don't have your smartphone for a day and they can't get you a replacement like that, you get angry.
Well, that's the thing, right? I mean, this is like a 0.001% incident that has blown up to actually take over the whole conversation point about where smartphones are and lithium batteries. I mean, that's kind of weird, right? So
yeah,
like maybe they overreacted.
Well, I don't know. I mean, the other thing weird here is I don't think Samsung really knows what the hell's going on.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know what? It's just concerning for everybody who makes batteries, right? I mean, the ATL guys who are doing the outsourcing for the batteries, you know, are probably wondering what in the world this is. I mean, think about it. Like, if that was a Tesla and you're driving, and that cascading effect happened in your car, oh my God, right? And it's the same battery technology.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that's where we need to look. And I mean, I'd feel much better all I hope is that when Samsung figures out what happened, they're very transparent about it and go, all right, this is what happened. Here's what we're doing about it, and go. If they do that, the brand will be fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just think, you know, and they've handled it. I'd give it a C, maybe. I mean, they sort of jumped the gun, and then they didn't line up with the U.S. regulators to, you know, organize the recall the first go round, and then, you know, so it's been lumpy, but their intentions seem good, right? Yeah. So I think
we'll hear a little bit more about this today. I think there's something coming up.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the biggest thing with the Note is, do you just kill the brand?
Yeah, pretty much.
You just come out with the Note 8 and go, hey, it's better. I don't know.
It's a cool phone. It's a cool phone.
The QA department right now to make sure whatever is next.
Yeah, I mean, it's
going to work.
There's a lot of brand equity in that Note.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's interesting.
Well, everyone loves the stylus, and that's definitely one of the big things for folks. So
yeah,
between stylus, Knox, the security features, I think people really thought this was a great way to bring that stuff into work. Speaking about work, Facebook at work. Facebook at work? What the heck?
I think it's going to kill Chatter. I just thought I'd throw it out there for giggles. If I'm not allowed to talk about Twitter and Salesforce, I might as well throw out a Chatter joke.
Yeah. Thanks for the mention.
Yeah. Facebook at work, I think, could probably do pretty well. I mean, let's face it, everybody's using. What confuses me about Facebook at work is, are people really going to go onto this work instance versus what they're doing already? Right, which is
they weren't working. They weren't working on Facebook. Maybe they will now.
Right. I mean, so that's the, you know, but that's also an issue like Gmail at work versus personal Gmail. You have two windows up, and you kind of toggle back and forth. But Facebook at work, I kind of wonder if it'll have the Slack kind of problem, where if you go on Slack and everybody starts talking about work, and then it becomes just another noisy social channel where people are talking about their dogs or their kids. Or all this other crap you don't care about. So that's kind of that's what I wonder about Facebook at work, right? And
or like the EI channel, on elections.
Right. And I am very skeptical of what I call yet another tool. And if I want to get really creative, I just go YAT or YAFT, right? Because you know, as long as I've been around, there's been some collaboration tool that's going to make life easier for me. And they all get uninstalled because they suck. And that's why email hasn't been replaced, really. You know, it kind of still works. So Facebook at work is going to have that issue. And we'll see how it goes. But any collaboration type tool has a pretty big hurdle for me to even get into.
Well, not that it's public, but I've noticed walking some friends at working at Infosys that they use that already. So think about that. I mean, that's like, I don't know, 300,000 people using Facebook at work. That's pretty huge. I mean, so it's already being deployed. So we'll have to see what happens. Alan Lepofsky wrote a pretty interesting report on it. So talking about words playing a role, but we're seeing that. All right. Well, let's talk about AWS and VMware. Is that, are we talking like legacy cloud comes alive? Are we talking
the most
unholy alliance? What's going on there? I saw Janny and and Pat yesterday. I was at the event. So
yeah, I mean, to see Jassy up there with Kelsinger, it was all I wanted to know was what the financial arrangement was, because in short order, VMware is probably going to be the biggest reseller of AWS. Right? It's in your console. If you don't have you can add services, add instances. VMware is going to drive a lot of AWS sales.
Yeah.
And I think the partnership was very realistic, right? It's like, look, we kind of we'd much rather have them on our own cloud and cut VMware out, but that didn't happen. So customers kind of want the integration, and there you go. So I think that's, it's a very practical thing.
Yeah.
And it's also a win-win, because if you look at the hybrid cloud, whether it's Oracle or IBM or whoever, or Microsoft, they kind of want you on their stack, right? And this kind of takes the two dominant parts of the private and public cloud and basically creates a stack. And that's a win-win for both parties, right? Because it kind of gives them that mojo that Microsoft Azure has, which is, you got the Windows Server, Azure integration, and, you go up and down Microsoft stack, it's all integrated, right? So I think that's, I think the deal makes a ton of sense. I mean, I think it makes a sense for customers, and it makes sense for both companies. And, I can almost hear Larry Ellison turn in my head, saying, that's not open, that's not open. And what's been very interesting to me about VMware throughout its whole history, you talk to the folks, and you're kind of like, you know what, dude, you're locked in. And they seem to be okay with it, right? AWS, you could argue there's some like locked in. Salesforce, pick your cloud provider, right? You pick a platform, you're kind of locked in. I mean, it's easier to switch providers than it used to be, but you're still locked in. It's still a pain you don't want to do. So I think the AWS VMware thing is very, very practical, makes a lot of sense. The other thing to note about AWS is they've been partnering with AT&T. They're partnering with Salesforce. They have partnered with a lot of folks that are embedded in the enterprise. So I think at every turn, it's going to be, if you're running enterprise infrastructure, AWS is going to be just a click away repeatedly.
One of the things we heard at the analyst briefing before the event was, the guy running sales at AWS used to be a VMware sales guy, right? So they've got some good channel programs, making sure that field enablement's in place. And the other interesting thing that was going on is, AWS is adding a lot more regions as well. So it looks like this thing is like a full affront on Microsoft at the moment. So
yeah,
with a sidebar with Larry, with a sidebar with like Oracle, So
yeah, and the other thing I wonder about is what's Diane Green thinking?
Yeah, what the hell was she doing? She should have made that deal.
Well, yeah, I mean, you obviously got the but I think we're going to see more and more deals like that, because you got to honor the joint customer. Or you'll lose it, right? So we'll see frenemy deals all over the place, and we are seeing them. But the VMware AWS seems to just recognize that the pie is pretty damn big, and there's enough money to flow around to everybody.
Yeah, I mean, we only have 5 to 7% of workloads in the cloud. I think that's one of the stats that Holger Miller talks about. I mean, we haven't moved anything onto this yet. I mean, we're just at the beginning still. So,
exactly. So
yeah.
Let's talk about AI and ethics and the White House report. A lot of key findings or recommendations in that, right?
Yeah, there were a lot of recommendations. The things that stuck out for me was that they were talking about ethics and how it has to be part of the AI infrastructure. And then there was a lot of talk about bias, which I thought was interesting too. There were a lot of references to bias in there, actually more than ethics. And the thing that just has me thinking is, can you really program that stuff? And, you know, humans are creating the algorithms, but once they become self-learning, you know, and on the ethical front, I do wonder whose ethics are we following, right? I'm pretty sure China's AI is going to be a little different than Russia's AI, which is going to be a little different than our AI, which is going to be a little different than ISIS's AI. And you might just create the same human shit show we got going on now, except it'll be artificial intelligence powered.
Much faster. So when you talk about bias, so the report noted that most computer science is dominated by white males,
right?
And there's a need for diversity. So that was the cautionary flag that these algorithms are being developed by a very specific demographic, and there needs to be a widening of that demographic.
Right, and that demographic needs to be widened for a bunch of other reasons beyond the algorithm. But I just did wonder. I just kind of wondered, you know, does your bias translate into an algorithm?
Can we?
I'm not sure. Right.
I'm gonna create a dumb AI bot.
Right.
I'm gonna create a slow AI bot. I'm gonna create a lazy AI bot.
And this comes from a journalist that doesn't quite believe in objectivity, right? I think it's a worthy goal to chase, but everybody has their inherent bias into any story or whatever anyway. So, and you can kind of weed it out, but there's always some slant somewhere. It doesn't matter what it is. So it's just an interesting topic, and I know there's like ethics committees being formed and things like that, but I don't know. I kind of look at it and it's an interesting goal. It's an interesting concept and something you need to pursue and think about. Do I have high hopes for it? No.
Well, the report also noted, you know, when you know the coming of age, or they call it, I think, generational intelligence. When you know this thing is now behaving more like humans and making decisions, and there wasn't a specific mile marker that was identified in order to.
Yeah, it sort of said, well, if you can read unstructured stuff and you can kind of make decisions and self-heal and blah blah blah, and oh, by the way, more research is needed. My hunch is that, you know, let's call that the oh my God, Terminator's a documentary moment. My guess is that's going to happen before we actually notice it. It's going to just happen in the background, and we're going to go, oh, interesting.
Hey, Skynet's working really well. Oh wait,
yeah, I don't think when some system becomes self-learning, I don't think, you know, it's not like it's going to be a guest on CNN. Right? It's going to happen. And I think everybody's going to go, well, do I keep this for commercial purposes? Do I tell anybody? Do I use this to sell more ads? There's going to be a lot of decisions being made.
We need AI to give us a definitive answer to what's going to happen in 24 days. So
exactly. Good luck with that. So I think it's an interesting. I mean, what I think was most interesting about that is that when they talked about ethics and they talked about bias and they talked about bringing in a lot of other disciplines, not just computer science, not just, you know, so maybe the poor philosophy major will actually get a gig in this somehow, right?
Philosophy major, the new data scientist of the.
You know,
the cross-functional thing I think was most interesting to me.
You mentioned the 60-minute piece, which could have just been labeled Intro to Watson, but you know, the fact that it can scan 25 billion papers in a week, that's, you know, I mean, ultimately augmented. You can see the potential of augmented intelligence with deep learning and pattern recognition, and how physicians can accelerate their discovery process and analysis to the nth degree with you know, with use of AI.
Yeah, it's very handy. What I do wonder about with Watson is just the effort it takes to train it.
Yeah.
Scaling up quickly. I mean, healthcare is like it's the best fit for that thing. And I don't know how it goes with other verticals. I know they're focused on a lot of different verticals, IoT, which makes sense, but healthcare seems like healthcare is kind of made for Watson, right? Like it just seems like it makes sense.
No, and they've done a lot of work there. And legal's another one where large corpus of data, lots of processing requirements, very, very structured places to actually create ontologies.
Lots of bottlenecks and delays. And if there's any way to optimize existing processes.
Lots of efficiencies, yeah.
Yeah, lots of efficiencies, right.
Yes.
Lots of efficiencies.
Is it ethical?
We'll have to ask that. We'll have to ask Watson if he's ethical.
When does Watson get pissed off? That's what I want to know.
So, all right. Well, hey, is OpenAI, last question, OpenAI partnership on AI? We can see lots of these kind of AI coalitions. Is this kind of just a fad for the moment, just to get people interested? Where are we on this?
I think those groups are pretty important, largely just to have the discussion.
All right. Well, will Einstein, Holmes, and Watson hang out together?
Will they date Cortana? I don't know.
I don't know. Why not?
Yeah, why not? I mean,
no comments.
Yeah, you know, you could totally. They're all cartoon.
Come on, let's speculate. No, just kidding. But hey, well, hey, this has been the summer of AI with the fall of massive AI hype. You know, we're definitely gonna follow this even more. Larry, hey, where are you gonna be at next? Is there gonna be a conference anywhere else that's kind of happening?
Larry's very specific where he goes. We know this.
Well, I don't go to Las Vegas. We know that. So any show in Las Vegas, I'm not there.
Well, you can just stick on the Half Moon Bay. The invitation is open. So. Oh
well, yeah. You guys got the best spot. So that's more of a scheduling issue than anything else. So
Larry must go.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm hopping around, but you know, nothing set in stone. I guess the AWS thing will be the next thing, but.
That is. Look for a lot of robo advisors and all this cool stuff with Alexa going into AWS. All right. Well, hey, Larry Dignan, editor-in-chief, ZDNet. You can follow him at Dignan, member of Enterprise Irregulars, and one of the foremost authorities in enterprise tech. So, hey, thanks for being on the show.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Ray, I'm telling you, we got Larry as a potential co-host anytime you and I are not able to make it. He's terrific.
I know. If he ever wants to jump in, we'll definitely invite him.
And I got to get him to start using Chatter because it actually rocks. I'm a power user of Chatter, actually. But we'll leave that for another show. Speaking of next week, who do we have? Next week?
We've got Kyle Poyar, market strategist for OpenView Venture Partners. We've got Cindy Zoe, VP and Principal Analyst at Constellation Research. She's going to be talking a little bit about her the world of digital marketing and sales effectiveness, how it's coming together. And we have some special guests, some shows, some of our top show watchers, Brian Katz, Zachary Taylor. We're going to have on the show. We're going to do a little preview on Constellation's Connected Enterprise. And then a shout out to Scott Allen, who's been watching our show. I think he's been on every single one of our shows, Vala. So
he's terrific. We got to get maybe Scott on the show and talk to him about what he's learned with DisrupTV, and also opportunity for us to learn from him.
So, and yeah, Zachary Jeans is Zachary Taylor. So if people really want to know, but you can follow him on Twitter. You can follow Brian Katz on Twitter, BM Katz, and then of course we will all see you on the show next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.